So what about Brexit? Here to tell us about it from a Montanan's perspective, who's living in the UK as we speak, former State Representative Nick Schwaderer, now joining us statewide here on Montana Talks. Nick, great to have you here on this show, and it's kind of fun catching up with you before we went statewide, talking about you're in Cornwall, England, and there's some pretty cool Butte, Montana connections that go back from Cornwall, England, and apparently the pasties started in England, actually, in Cornwall, and not in Ireland, which was a surprise to me. But great to have you on the show this morning.
Yeah, great to be on the show. And also, just really quick, I'd like to say heartfelt congratulations to Greg and Scott getting into leadership for the majority. I served with both of them. They have fantastic leadership experience, and I'm really excited to see how they do this session. They have a big task ahead of them. So
yeah, it's funny, after a huge election here in Montana, $60+ million spent on just the U.S. Senate race alone, and we're all pretty much back where we were before it all started. I mean, you've got a Democrat governor and a Republican state house and a Republican state Senate. So same there. And then, at the federal level, I mean, Republicans have more seats in the Senate. But from a federal level, we still have our Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte. We still have our liberal Senator John Tester. So same there, I guess. But
yeah, it's kind of a same song, second verse. My predecessor in the House served his entire time under Schweitzer. I served, we had Bullock, and then my successors, doing that under Bullock. And it's, kind of the same version, different version of the same story here. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but it's very important to be holding, both the houses, because it wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
Before me, remember there's those few sessions where it was razor thin, and then the majority would be decided by like 5 votes in one House seat. And before that, there was a lot more Democrat control. So since 11, it's pretty much held that kind of the same story for us in the legislature.
Yeah, it's kind of ever since Obamacare, really. I mean, oddly enough,
yes.
I mean, if Republicans have had huge majorities in the House and the Senate continuously since that time, and it's really because of Obamacare. So oddly enough, you can almost say thank you to Senator John Tester for all the Republicans in the state legislature. So what about Brexit? It's interesting. Not only are you living in the UK now, working for a tech firm, but Montana State University poli-sci professor David Parker's on the ground in London right now. So Brexit, how in trouble is UK Prime Minister Theresa May?
I think she's in a lot of trouble, actually. She was in a tough position to begin with because, if I'm going to be honest with you, if you're a conservative prime minister in the UK and Europe, you're never going to get love from the press anyway. But then she was originally a Remainer, and she called an election after she got the prime ministership that she wasn't able to form a majority, so she had to form a coalition. So it's a very weak position, and it's only gotten worse, right? Because any plan she comes out with, it's never going to be moderate enough to make the other minority parties happy. And I don't know if she has the fortitude to make a plan that would make all of her party happy, including the caucus, like you say, that is currently not very happy with it.
So she basically, the big news was she came out and announced a Brexit plan, and it's basically considered a compromise Brexit plan. So her, the biggest backers of Brexit are not happy with it at all. I think 5 of her cabinet folks have basically resigned in protest. And you kind of their version in a way of, if you think about the Freedom Caucus from a U.S. congressional standpoint to the pushback she's getting within the UK. So there's a lot of pushback on her exit plan, which also could just threaten her power in general. Well, how big of news is this to folks back here in the United States, do you think? What's the American perspective on this story and how big it is?
There's a massive impact here, and it's not just, political theater, because it seems that the UK kind of makes the news when there's a royal wedding, but now there's been this Brexit, so that's gotten in the news a lot. But I'll tell you, there's parts of this deal, because it's 600 pages long, and there are elements of it. I have actually had a look because I'm, nerdy like that, and there's elements of it that I could say, yeah, that's pragmatically I understand, but then there's elements that are rough, and there's elements that are bad for actually America. So part of this deal is kicking the can down the road for a few years to form a more permanent agreement between the UK and the EU. And I understand that, but in the meantime, it prohibits the UK from effectively building a free trade agreement with the U.S., which Trump and Theresa have been interested in. So they can't, for example, if the EU has a quota and tariff on a good, the UK cannot go below or around that quota or that tariff in the next however many years till they get a final deal. They have to honor those with third-party countries. And I said one of the best things from our perspective that we could get out of this is a free trade deal, because the UK can't negotiate trade deals on its own, and it hasn't been able to for years.
Yeah.
I think, especially with Trump in, I think a bilateral trade deal would have been a fantastic thing for both economies, and honestly, as an American living here, great for relations. So
well, and it's a big part of our Montana economy is agriculture, and that's trade.